Hey, soul survivors, I want to talk about how self-esteem affects relationships. So, how does this relate to narcissism? I know a lot of us reflect back and we're like, was I the narcissist? And we go through a lot of guilt. And when we start analyzing it, that has some significance to where you probably have some empathy. You probably feel bad for the things that you've done, which is not a narcissistic trait, however your actions might have been. So sometimes when we get in a triggered state, narcissism, not narcissistic personality disorder, but narcissism will start to become ingrained within the relationship. So we talk about narcissistic relationships is also toxic because when we are in that triggered state, we're also toxic to the narcissist because their altered reality is not matching up with ours and they want to keep this reality. So when we start getting beat down and we go through the cognitive dissonance and we start to lose a sense of ourselves, we're already in like brain fog. Our brains are starting to be damaged. We have trauma bonding. We're starting to ruminate, and some of us have hope for the Hoover. Some of us have guilt towards, or even disbelief, like what happened. So I've talked to a couple people about uh, their relationship, and it seems narcissistic. I need to talk to them more about that. But what's bringing me to do this video is what she's going through. And I'm sure a lot of you are going through this. So if you have been beat down by a narcissist, or even just somebody bullied you, or you have different outcome on what you thought this relationship would be, because two loving people should be able to work through things, but it starts eating at you. And I know this in particular person was, you know, I'm tired of feeling like it's all my fault. And she sees what is going on in the other person, the toxic traits the other person has. And that person doesn't want to take accountability, doesn't want to absorb some of that pain. So it's all put onto this one person. And in the healing process, this is the lesson that we are meant to learn. We're meant to learn about boundaries, we're meant to learn about self love, also how to communicate things. Some people shut down, some people act out, but there comes a point where it's easier to do in the beginning, and that's why instead of overlooking red flags, that we can notice them. We can either handle them or realize that it's not healthy for us. We have to know who we are, what are our deal breakers, what is important to us, and what we will not tolerate. And when you start building up your self-esteem, it is so weird how it's a protective thing where the people who are not meant for you will fall to the wayside. And I was also thinking too about the different red flags. Different red flags can mean something completely different to you than they do to me. So let's say you got roses. To me, that might be a big red flag because I used to get roses from a narcissistic ex, or my dad would beat me and then he would, bring me flowers. For you, you've possibly never had any trauma related to receiving flowers. So we have to know what our red flags are. And it's sad, but during these relationships with a narcissist, a lot of us haven't ever been exposed to this type of trauma. So it's all new to us. We're not sure how to handle it. A lot of us are really kind-hearted. We don't want to hurt the other person, so we're not going to, be real bold and in their face and calling them names and shutting them down. We want to do it in a kind way. But they take advantage of that. They see that as a weakness. And over time, they just don't want to deal with the emotional maturity or emotional intellect. So as we grow, hopefully we all start to become more emotionally intelligent. And I know I could have handled things differently. There's times that I could have taken a moment. There's also times that I could express that I'm not tolerating the ghosting. Sometimes, We don't always necessarily have to give up that information. Sometimes we have to wait for the right time, the teachable moment. Unfortunately, with avoidance and narcissists, sometimes you don't get those teachable moments. So it can be quite frustrating. But with her self esteem, and I'm not saying it's all bad, but I'm saying that she doesn't have to allow somebody to tell her it's all her fault. Because realistically, she might have played a part in it, but realistically, knowing who she is, and yeah, there it's very rarely 100% somebody's fault. Whether it's and that's where it gets tricky with a psychopaths and sociopaths, where they're just out for supply and they can discard people at the drop of a hat. So we have to know who we are. If you are one of those psychopathic people, you're going to be like, this is bullshit. What is she talking about? And you're probably not even going to want to hear me, or you're going to laugh at me. But the people who are searching for answers, the answer comes from within you. And I know I want to take you guys on like the spiritual journey of inner peace. And I see a lot of the missing piece is a spiritual piece, because when you go to therapy, it deals with the mind and I'm so tired, guys. The mind, like our brain and our feelings, but it doesn't deal with the spiritual. It also deals with the body, the psychological, the physiological damage that can be done to us. So it's really important, if you are in this toxic relationship, to realize it causes brain damage, can cause all different kinds of health issues, and it can cause you to struggle for years. And when people are in that triggered state of either absorbing too much of the blame that's not fair, and that's that cognitive dissonance, I know it's not fair, we have to own it. We don't have to accept. But for the growth part, we have to see, okay, I didn't have to yell back. Because there is that reactive abuse, that if we handle it in a different way, it will make a huge difference. And also the faith and the peace, and as far as reconnecting with someone, do we reconnect with a narcissist? A lot of you are brokenhearted, wanting that Hoover. The time apart, they have narcissistic mortification, where sometimes they might go into reflection, but people's personalities are kind of ingrained in them. They're either going to be a kind person. People do change sometimes. So with spirituality, and a lot of times it takes a extreme devastation. But to wait for somebody to change, you're missing out on your life, and you're not growing. You're not learning these lessons that are meant for you. So the low self-esteem can cause you to not go out, not enjoy things, to act differently, and you're not going to be your true authentic self. So that's why they talk about like loving yourself, because you're a beautiful person. And when you hide behind things, people don't get to see the natural beauty of who you are and appreciate who you are. And it's going to change the way you speak and the way you present. And, confidence is sexy. Know who you are. And also, if you accept yourself for who you are, or try to do better on the areas that you're lacking, that you will build up that self-esteem. And that's almost like an armor, where, somebody might make fun of me for something. It's like, okay, like, whatever, that's fine. Where we don't take it to heart. Part of what happens is a narcissist love to use this as a weapon, but even just society might say something. And I give the example of something that makes me uncomfortable. When I was growing up, you wanted the teeny tiny butts, and now it's like the big butts are what's in. But if somebody says something about my big butt, they're trying to be like complimentary. And it's kind of like that's not what I want for myself, but to accept yourself for who you are and to not dwell on the physical appearance, do the best you can for yourself, take pride in who you are. And also like first impressions, all those kind of things. So you don't have to have a lot of money, but whatever you do have, to make the most of it and present yourself. You think about, what would I like in a person? What would I like my friend to present as? What would I like my boyfriend or husband to present as, and be that person? And that's a lot of times it matches up. So if you're depressed, wearing your sweats, your hair's not done, haven't shaved in forever, whatever it is, that you're not being your optimal person. Um, and you don't have to shave. I think you guys know what I mean. But it's such a deep, abstract thing that I am trying to say. The person I was speaking with, it's like, no, you don't have to own that. You do not have to own that, because that's her struggle. That's why she's not moving on, because it's not making sense. And how do you grieve something, or how do you accept something when it's not a truth? It's really hard to accept something that's not a truth. Now, a breakup, that's a truth. You guys aren't together. But to feel that, you can look back and say, I did my best. I did my best with what I knew. And how do we move forward? How do we move forward? And it's a change in focus. It will take time to rewire your brain. And that's a necessary part in the healing process. Without going through that pain, you're going to be stuck. And I don't want you guys to be stuck any longer. Part of that is letting go. You can leave it to God, leave it to the universe, and just take it away from yourself for a minute. And faith will unfold. What's meant to be will be. So take some time to give it a rest and give yourself some grace. Build up that self-esteem. And that's part of knowing who your authentic self is, knowing what's toxic to you, knowing what you will and won't tolerate, but most of all, knowing who you are. And you have to love yourself first before others can love you. Because until you love yourself, you're going to have all these masks and putting a foot forward where you're either timid or walking on eggshells, and people take advantage of that. So you can be kind, but you have to learn how to speak and convey. And you also have to know, when is it time to be quiet? So lots of love to you guys. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Please share it. This will help somebody. And I love my subscribers, so feel free to hit that like button. Notification bells will let you know when the next video is up.